Hello.
Valentina, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Check out my new digs.
Show me. It's amazing. It's like cottage core dreamland.
That's exactly what I was going for.
There you go.
So, I wish I could stand up, but I've got a very complex setup with my mic here. But this is the living room. These are my books.
I love it.
That is the kitchen up in the corner, and up there's my lofted bedroom. Bam, that is it. The end of tour.
I love it. Well, I also moved. Somehow we think it's a great idea to move in the middle of summer. And I'm only showing you a tiny bit because I'm not unpacked yet. But these are all my books. This is the living room. This is my pile of art that I haven't put up yet. So many paintings. And that's all you gotta see for now.
That's all you gotta see for right now.
One of the super interesting things that we're going to talk about today is art and also intersectionality and what role intersectionality plays in art. And it got me thinking, like, what is the role of all of our identities and who we are, not just in how we show up on our everyday life, but in the work that we do. It's not a monolith, just like art is not a monolith that is, you know, just like folks from European heritage and big, empty, you know, sort of museum halls. That's also not what art is. Art is everyday art. It's all of our pieces that make up the entire environmental movement are of value. They're important. And that's how we want to bring people along as well. If people feel like maybe nervous about joining, they don't necessarily identify themselves as activists. They don't necessarily think of themselves as environmentalists. There's a place for you too. There's a place for all of us in protecting our Madre Tierra and our planet.
Art plays such an important role in activism, whether you're creating a poster to take to a local protest or doing something bigger than that, like a massive banner drop, for example, at Greenpeace. I think everything that we do is political, but art especially has such a wonderful way of conveying messages that is accessible to everybody, is beautiful, is captivating, but it also creates conversation and sparks sort of that debate amongst people. And I think that that's what's most important, is that that art is creating a space for debate.
Do you do art, Crystal?
I do. I think all of us are artists. You know, if you're just like picking up a pen and doodling, that is art. If you are, you know, creating these big murals, that is also art. I think anybody who is willing to put themselves and express themselves like on a page or any other medium that they decide to use is an artist. But yeah, I've always been a huge supporter of the arts, and you know, in my free time, I started a arts program that talked about sort of like well-being and self-care and self-esteem amongst youth, and using art as the vehicle to do that. And it was called Expressarte, and it was one of my favorite things. Actually, one of the paintings I have back there, it was created by one of my students. Anybody can be an artist. It doesn't really matter where you come from or what you do, as long as you're expressing yourself and you're expressing how you feel in that very moment. That is art.
I think I'm not very visual. I was always more of a poet. You know, poetry slams, etc., baby.
It is art, baby. And also this like look that you've got going on today is art. Are you kidding?
With us today, we have the amazing Justin Favela AKA Favy Fav. He's Guatemalan American artist from Nevada, known for his large-scale sculptures that plays with American pop culture and the Latinx experience. He's the host of a couple of podcasts, including the Art People podcast and one of my favorite podcasts, Latinos Who Lunch. Welcome, Favy.
Hey, welcome, Favy.
I'm still trying to figure out technology.
Oh, technical difficulties.
Me and my abuela, we're right there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am in Las Vegas, Nevada right now.
Sin City,
And
baby.
Beautiful. Yes, Sin City, where people don't believe that wearing masks is a thing. So.
Crystal and I, very similarly, you know, we started working at Greenpeace right around the same time, and we really didn't see a lot of Latinx representation in the environmental movement in these big green organizations. And so we thought, hey, like maybe we can just do something like that. And on your show, you talk about sort of the intersectionality between being queer, Latinx, and sort of like this like idea of like Spanglish inside this Anglo world. What do you think is the importance of intersectionality? Why is it so important to talk about?
Oh my gosh, that's one of the big missions of Latinos Who Lunches, that if it's not intersectional, it's really not for anyone, really. Like, if it's not if the revolution isn't intersectional, then we will never be free, basically, you know? So from the very beginning, we've been checking ourselves on our privilege as cisgender males on the show, and because we recognize the misogyny within our own, belief systems, just based on how we were raised in America. And I'm saying America like North, South, and Central America.
Yeah.
And so and then something that happened maybe like a year or two into Latinos Who Lunch was the recognition of the erasure of Central American culture, and also Afro-Latinidad. So we actively, before people were using the term, anti-racist or really intersectionality, because I think I heard that a lot after the white women's march that happened a few years ago. So they still got their pussy hats on. I haven't seen many at the Black Lives Matter protests, but still waiting. So anyway, we really started paying attention to, like, oh my gosh, we're really like Mexico-centric on our show. We need to actively be anti-Black and talk about colorism and talk about the erasure of Afro-Latinidad on our show. And we recognized that it was our own, that was one of our personal goals, was to really openly talk about that and have sometimes uncomfortable conversations.
Like, I love what you said. We can't have a revolution if it's not intersectional, because the sort of traumas and the histories and the experiences are compounded with each identity that include you, both, in a way that's like, boosts you in society and helps you in society, and also not. It's so interesting to think about, especially with climate change, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be affected by climate change, but to what degree, and how soon, it really depends on where you are, how much you have, how much you're given, how much you're supported in society.
It's funny because like recycling and taking care of the environment, it's seen as this like very feminine or, white people thing. But it's like, no, I mean, Latinos have been trying to take care of the environment for a very long time. We just don't talk about it in the same way. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I also like to pretend that I'm vegan on the show, just to make people mad, because, that's also something that's relegated to just white people, So like, oh yeah, I don't want to eat cows anymore because it's bad for the environment. And that's like a real thing that I'm doing.
Now that we're talking about climate and how much Latinx people care about it, maybe not in the same context that, white people are like, recycling, or I'm vegan, or I'm this, like we have our abuelas, teaching us like, here's this like remedio, or like rub this like herb on your like sore foot and you'll wake up so much
Vicks
better.
Vaporub, the best herb.
Or some other iteration of that. I mean, Latinx people care about the environment, and we quote this like, or reference this study that happened recently at Yale, that 70% of people in the United States who are Latinx care about the environment. And so how do you see that or not see that reflected in our culture? And how do you see Latinx values reflected in the conversation around the environment?
Yeah, I mean, there's very different schools of thinking within my own family, for example. But like my abuelita, I see a lot of people saying this online too, is like, we've been saving plastic bags and containers from jump, right? Like, that's just something that we do. And are like, is that sour cream in the fridge? It's probably salsa or some like leftover beans or something. You never know. So in little ways like that, we're very resourceful as Latinos, because a lot of times we have to be, but also that's just part of our culture, even in Latin America. But an example that pops up in my head is I recently visited Guatemala for the first time as an adult, and went back to where my mom is from, this little village called El Cubilete in Gualan, which is right in the center Zacapa in Guatemala. And so half of my family are farmers, and then half of them are raise cattle. So it's like that's when I realized, like, yo, my family is responsible for like the deforestation of Guatemala, because I'm seeing all this open land my grandpa has, but they don't see it that way. They're like, no, cows are money. We're gonna raise these cows. We're gonna make, some of them are dairy cows. Some of them will be sold for meat. And so there's just acres and acres of land that my family owns that is just, it's just grass now, when it used to be rich rainforest. And but what I saw going to Guatemala was the next generation of us. And one of my younger tios, for example, he ended up inheriting some land from my great uncle, his dad, and it's this beautiful kind of hill next to a river that was all chopped down. And in that part of Guatemala, the iguanas are gone because people have they ate them all, basically. They hunted them all away. So his goal now is to bring back the rainforest, which is already growing back with a vengeance, and make a sanctuary for all of these iguanas in the town, so that they actually come back. And his goal is to repopulate the town with iguanas again. And so there's people on both sides of my family, tearing down the rainforest and then rebuilding it in the very same village, basically. Unfortunately, a lot of Latinos in the United States are affected by capitalism and patriarchy and individualism and all this bullshit. And so we are, a lot of us are raised to be very destructive in that sense.
Yeah, we've got to change the systems for us to like really thrive. Let's pivot and talk a little bit about your art. I'm super excited to hear more about that. Like, what got you started? What inspires your art? And then also, what role does art play in activism?
I wasn't a visual artist until recently. I've been a full-time artist for 3 years now this month. And so, yeah, with no day job, just been freelancing and doing contract work and stuff like that. So my journey as an artist didn't really start until college. I took a drawing class, I think my sophomore year, junior year. And once I did that, I just shifted my whole major. I was a music guy before that. I played the tuba. I was like really cool in high school. So
distinguished, the tuba.
I know, right? Oh, people hated me on the bus. Okay, so when I started making art, I was making things in response to art history, and just kind of poking fun at different things. And I kind of stayed away from making art about identity for a long time, because I saw that a lot of Latinos, or a lot of people of color, I should say, in the art world, when they start making art about themselves, then that's all their art is about, right? Is identity and trauma, because oh my God, the white art world loves our trauma. They put it on display in the biggest museums, right? And so I kind of stayed away from making very personal work like that for a long time. And then one day I said, you know what? I'm gonna make a piece that is like over the top about my identity as a Latino and kind of ridiculous. So I made this huge piñata that was the size of a donkey. So I like enlarged the donkey, like I made it look like a real life donkey out of fabric and chicken wire and paper mache. And then I covered it in the traditional colors of a piñata as one of the first kind of like symbols of Latinidad. And it just looked like the sad dead horse hanging in a gallery. It was very dramatic. And of course, everybody loved it. And I got a lot of attention for it. My goal from the very beginning was to make it accessible, so that even, my abuelita understands, my 8-year-old cousin understands, my nieces understand what I'm doing. And also, once I got into kind of the art world, then my mission became to also have a bit of an institutional critique within my work. Like, so it went from making piñatas as objects to using the piñata as a medium, tissue paper and cardboard, and covering literally I'm covering white walls in institutions with color, right? Trying to break down these boundaries or these stereotypes through my artwork. So at first glance, my work might look like, it is a celebration of Latinx culture, of my culture, of my story, my identity. But it's also an institutional critique on what we see in museums and who's allowed in those spaces, who are those spaces for, right? And so when I get the opportunity to show at a major museum or gallery, I say, how much can I cover? How much of the walls can I cover up? How much space can I take up in here? Because I'm going to take up as much space as humanly possible, right?
And take up as much space as possible, because we are doing the work. Like you're saying, there are artists, you're creating art. And then same with environmentalism. We need to bust down the doors and just take up the space.
I love that analogy too of like, I'm going to get my palo, like la escoba, and I'm just going to go at it. That's what I was thinking the entire time. So many
Break down those walls. Yes.
As you are familiar maybe with, there's two kinds of hot sauces. One is called Valentina hot sauce and one is called Cristal hot sauce. Which one is your favorite?
Oh my God.
I already know the answer.
Depends for what.
Ooh.
So I have different salsas for different things. Valentina I only use Valentina for two things. Plain, just like potato chips, like plain Lay's potato chips and Valentina, maybe a little limon. Perfect. I also use Valentina for carne asada tacos.
Oh,
that's it.
Okay.
So
it's a perfect combination. Crystal hot sauce, that's the one that's a little bit more like vinegary, right? I usually use that for the morning for eggs and potatoes. That's it.
How many hot sauces are in your house right now?
Oh my gosh, there's a whole cabinet of them.
Oh my gosh, Favy, it's been so great to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. You're such a joy. I can't wait to see your hot sauces later, or have you come over and we can have a little kiki.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to check out Favy Fav and Babelito on their podcast, Latinos Who Lunch. And also make sure to check out Favy's other podcast, the Art People Podcast. And you can follow Favy at Favy Fav on social media. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and text Planeta G to 877-877 to stay updated, and follo't us on Instagram at Greenpeace USA.
Conocido.
Ciao! Say stop. Okay. Stop. Because you got another cups. There you go.
3 of Cups. What does that mean?
3 of Cups is celebration, friendship, creativity, and collaboration.
That's exactly what we're doing out here, baby.
This is our card. I don't know who this third lady is, but she's around here somewhere.
It's whoever's watching.
I love it.